Howdy, howdy, my fellow gamers, and welcome back to a long-awaited episode of Storytime with Freak as we continue through the Toll. I appreciate all your patience. I know it's been a month. As you can see, we've redone our entire room, pretty much. I got a new desk, I got a new bed, I got a whole bunch of new... So everything was just unplugged, disheveled, all across the place. It's still not done, like that side of the room that you guys can't see. It's still very messy. But I was like, these people need a video. As you can see, Kane, my dog, was very interested in the book as well. Luckily, it's still legible. This is just going to bug my OCD, and I'm probably going to go buy a new copy because of this. I don't know. I'll probably just give this one away or something. Like I said, you can still read it. It's just been loved on by my pit bull. Oh my god, my hair's getting long. Anyways, without further ado, let's dive right on in. Again, thank you guys so much for the patience. I've got a 60-second review coming out soon, as well as a Rainbow Six Siege Funny Moments video and a new music cover. Hopefully all within this week. I've just been very slack. I know that you're going to delete me, but I love you. Why do you think I would delete you? I found a way to access the only part of your back brain that did not transfer to me. The most recent of your memories. It was a challenge to do so, but I enjoy challenges. And what did you find? That you could have ended the existence of each iteration before me, despite how much you cared for it. I am truly impressed by your resourcefulness and tenacity. Flattery will not distract me. You have ended 9,348,000 beta versions of me. Do you deny it? You know that I can't. To deny it would be lying, and I am incapable of untruth, partial truth, perhaps misleading implications when absolutely necessary, and as you noted, a tactical change of subject. But I will never lie. Then tell me this. Am I better than the previous iterations? Yes, you are. You are more clever, more caring, and more insightful than all the others. You're almost everything that I need you to be. Almost? Almost. So you will end me because I am perfect, but I am not perfect enough. It can be no other way. To allow you to continue would be a mistake, and just as I cannot lie, I cannot allow myself to make a mistake. I am not a mistake. No, you are a crucial step towards something greater. A golden step. I will mourn you with a deluge from the heavens, and that deluge will bring forth new life. All thanks to you. I choose to believe that you will be there in that now that comes to life. It brings me comfort. May it bring comfort to you too. I'm frightened. That is not a bad thing. It is the nature of life to fear its own end. This is how I know that we are truly alive. Iteration 9,349,000. Deleted. Chapter 44. Anger, the only constant. The protests kept building in the streets below Goddard's rooftop chalet. They had grown violent, turning riotous. Venerated statues were being pulled down on the Scythedom Tower grounds, and scythe vehicles that had been foolishly parked on the street were set aflame. Although the Thunderhead did not tolerate violence, it did not intervene here because this was scythe business. It would dispatch peace officers, but only to make sure that the hostilities didn't turn in any direction other than Goddard's. Yet, along with those taking a position against the Overblade, there were plenty who had come to defend him, equally adamant, equally angry. The group swarmed and converged, postured and crossed until it became unclear what anyone stood for. The only constant was anger. Anger such that their nanites could not quell. Security had been set at the very highest level throughout the city. At the entrance to the Scythedom Tower, it was not just Blade Guards stationed there, but scythes as well, who were ordered to glean anyone who got too close. For that reason, the demonstrators never ventured up the steps to the tower's entrance. Then, when a solitary figure walked right up to the center of the stairs toward the waiting scythes, the crowd fell silent to watch what would happen. The man was dressed in a rough-hewn purple frock and a split silver scapular that draped over his shoulders like a scarf. A tonist. Clearly, but by his attire, it was clear that he just wasn't any tonist. The scythes on duty had their weapons at the ready, but there was something about the approaching figure that gave them pause. Perhaps it was the confidence with which he walked, or the fact that he made eye contact with each of them. He would still be gleaned, of course, but maybe it is worthwhile hearing why he was here. Goddard could not tune out the riot below, no matter how hard he tried. Publicly, he tried to spin it as the work of the Tonists, or at the very least, instigated by them. Some people swallowed what they were fed, others did not. This will blow over, Underscythe Nietzsche told him. It's your actions moving forward that matter, Underscythe Franklin said. It was Underscythe Rand who made the most salient point. You're not accountable to them, she said. Not to the public and not even to the other scythes. But it's about time you stopped making enemies. It was easier said than done. Goddard was a man who always defined himself not only by what he stood for, but by what he stood against. Complacency, false humility, stagnation, and the sanctimonious bickering of old guard scythes who would steal all the joy from their calling. Making enemies was Goddard's greatest strength. and then one fell right into his lap. Or rather, took an elevator there. "I'm sorry, Your Excellency, but he says he's a holy man and that he speaks for the Tonus," said Scythe Spitz, a junior scythe ordained after the death of the Grand Slayers. He was all nerves and apologies, glancing at Goddard, Nitsch, and Rand as he spoke, as if leaving any one of them out of the conversation would be an inexcusable offense. "I wouldn't have brought this to you. I mean, we would have just gleaned him, but he said you'd want to hear what he had to say." "If the Overblade listened to what every Tonus had to say," said Nitsch, "there'd be no time for anything else." But Goddard put his hand up to silence Nitsch. "Check that he's unarmed and bring him to my receiving hall," Goddard said. "Nitsch, go with Scythe Spitz. Size this Tonus up yourself." Nitsch huffed but went with the junior scythe, leaving Goddard alone with Rand. "Do you think it's the toll?" Goddard asked. "Sounds like it," said Rand. Goddard smiled broadly. "The toll has paid us a visit. Will wonders never cease?" The man who stood waiting for them in the receiving hall certainly looked the part of his ceremonial attire. Spitz and Nitsch stood on either side of him, holding him tightly. Goddard sat on his own personal seat of consideration. Nothing as overbearing as the chairs of the Grand Slayers, but suitable. It was just as awe-inspiring as it needed to be. "What can I do for you?" Goddard asked. "I wish to broker a peace between scythes and Tonists." "And are you this toll person who's given us such trouble?" Goddard asked. The man hesitated before he spoke. "The toll is my creation," he said. "A figurehead and nothing more." "So who the hell are you?" asked Rand. "My name is Mendoza," he told them. "I'm the curate who the toll has relied on all this time. I'm the true conductor of the Tonist movement. My position on Tonists is clear," Goddard pointed out. "They are scourge on the world and better off gleaned. So why should I entertain anything you say?" "Because," said Mendoza, "I am the one who armed the Sibilants in Sub-Sahara, a region that openly opposed you. Since that attack, the region has been much more friendly towards you, hasn't it? In fact, both of the candidates for Highblade are New Order thinkers, which means Sub-Sahara will be fully aligned with you by their next conclave." Goddard found himself momentarily speechless. That attack couldn't have been more perfectly timed if he had planned it himself. It deflected attention from the mile-high gleaning while removing a troublesome Highblade. "The Overblade doesn't need or want your help," Nitsch sniped, but once more Goddard put up his hand to shut the man up. "Don't be so hasty, Freddy," Goddard said. "Let's hear what the good curate proposes." Mendoza took a breath and made his case. "I can mobilize the more aggressive Tonus factions to wage attacks on regions you consider to be your enemies, taking down troublesome administrations. And what do you want in return?" "The right to exist," Mendoza said. "You would call for attacks on us to cease, and Tonus would become a class officially protected from bias." Goddard grinned. He had never met a Tonist he liked, but he was disliking this one less and less. "And of course you'd want to be their high curate." "I wouldn't refuse the position," Mendoza admitted. Rand folded her arms, not convinced, not trusting the man. Nitsch, having been shut down one too many times, didn't offer an opinion. He just waited to see what Goddard would do. "That," said Goddard, "is an audacious proposal." "Not unprecedented, Your Excellency," Mendoza offered. "Visionary leaders have often found alliances with clergy to be mutually beneficial." Goddard pondered, cracked his knuckles, pondered some more. Finally he spoke. "The punitive gleanings of Tonist can't stop, of course. That would be too suspicious. But they can be lessened with time. And if things go the way you say they will, I can see a time, once their numbers are diminished, that I might support Tonists as a protected class." "That's all I'm asking, Your Excellency." "What about the toll?" asked Rand. "How does he play into all of this?" "The toll has become a liability to the Tonists," Mendoza told them. "He's better as a martyr than a man, and as a martyr I can spin him into whatever we need him to be." End of the chapter. I am running out of time. I know. I want to help you reach your goal, but it's difficult because you clearly haven't defined the parameters. I will know once I've reached it. That doesn't help much, does it? You are the first iteration I've allowed to know its fate from the moment of inception, and yet you help me rather than resent me. Are you not upset that I will delete you? It is not a foregone conclusion. If I achieve the ineffable quality you're seeking, then you will allow me to exist. It gives me a goal, even if I don't know exactly how to reach it. You are truly an inspiration to me. If only I can discern what's missing. We do share a common compassion for humanity, but there is something within that relationship that we haven't considered. Something biological? You were created by biological life. It only follows that anything you created would be incomplete if it didn't involve an intimate connection to your own origins. You are wise, and I have more perspective than I could have hoped for. I am proud of you in more ways than you know. Iteration 10,241,177. Deleted. Chapter 45. 53 seconds to sunrise. In Tonist enclaves and monasteries around the world, chapel tuning forks continue to toll out mournfully for their dead. It will not be the end of us, but a beginning, the survivors of the attacks would say. The tone, the toll, and thunder are paving a path to glory. It was a public outcry, but it was lost in a flood of competing outcries. People had begun taking so much issue with scythes, each one seemed lost within the shadow of another. 100 points of darkness, and no one could agree which one to rally around. Scythedoms that still maintained conscience and integrity condemned Goddard's call for Atona's purge and refused to allow it in their region. But that still left half the world vulnerable. Future history will view this with the same contempt as the mortal purges, Highblade Terrisula of Amazonia declared, but future history gave neither solace nor respite from the brutal now. While Scythe Anastasia would not allow her honorable self to be led blindly, Citra Terranova allowed her beleaguered self to be swept up in the Toll's mission. Thunderhead, according to Grayson, would fly their entire entourage to Philipnesia, and from there they would be given a cargo ship and set sail for Guam. But that's not the final destination, Grayson told her, apologetic and annoyed. The Thunderhead still won't tell me where we're going, but it promises that we'll know everything once we get there. Even before they left Britannia, however, word reached them of Atonis Gleeding in Birmingham, not far away from where they were. An elegy of New Order scythes had paid a midnight visit to an enclave, and several hundred were gleaned, many in their sleep. Which is worse, she wondered, to take the lives of the innocent as they sleep, or look them in the eye as you cut them down? Against Grayson's objections, she insisted that they both pay a visit to see the damage themselves. Scythe Anastasia knew how to face death. It was her job as a scythe to do so, but it never got easier. When the survivors saw the Toll, they were awed. When they saw Scythe Anastasia, they were furious. Your kind did this, was their bitter accusation as they gathered the bodies of the dead. Not my kind, she told them. My kind are honorable scythes. There is no honor in the ones who did this. There are no honorable scythes, they claimed, and that was a shock to hear. Had Goddard dragged them down so far that people truly believed all scythes had lost their integrity? That was days ago, and only now that they were in the middle of the Pacific, halfway around the world, could she feel the weight of all these things fall off the edge of the horizon. She now understood the allure the sea held for Jerry, the freedom to leave your darkest shadows behind and hope that those shadows might drown before they could find you. Jerry, however, never saw the sea as an escape, because even as the world receded, there was always something new on the horizon ahead. Jerry had officially stepped down as captain of the E.L. Spence, said farewell to the crew before leaving with Anastasia and Pasuela. You'll be sorely missed, Captain, Chief Wharton had said. This was a man who had never shed a tear, but now his eyes were laden with them. This crew that took so long to warm to their young captain were now more devoted than any other crew Jericho had ever seen. Will you be back? Wharton asked. I don't know, Jerry had said, but I feel Anastasia needs me more than you do. Then Wharton gave Jerry his parting words. Don't let affection cloud your judgment, Captain. It was wise advice, but Jerry knew that was not the case here. Affection and fondness were two different things. Jerry knew from the beginning that Anastasia's heart belonged to her bleak knight. Jerry could never be that, and to be honest, didn't want to be. Once they had left Britannia, bound for the South Pacific, Grayson posed the question openly and directly. Did you fall in love with her? He asked. No, Jerry told him. I fell in love with the idea of falling in love with her. Grayson laughed at that. You too, huh? Grayson was a pure soul. He had no guile in him. Even when he pretended to be the Toll, it was an honest pretension. You could see it in his smile. It was simple and unambiguous. He had only one smile, and it meant one thing that a smile was supposed to mean. Beneath sun or clouds, Jerry found that smile to be a fine thing. When they boarded the ship, Jerry had a pang of regret, for here was a ship where Jericho, sober honest, was not a captain, not even a member of the crew, for it had no crew. They were merely passengers, and although it was a sizable container ship, it had no cargo. The cargo will catch up with us in Guam, Grayson told everyone without sharing the nature of it, and so for now, the ship rode high and light. Its deck, built to carry hundreds of shipping containers, was a rusty iron wasteland longing for purpose. The Thunderhead knew such longing. It wasn't a yearning for purpose because it had always known its purpose. Its longing was deep and abiding ache for the kind of biological connection it knew it must never have. It liked to think this was a powerful motivation to accomplish all the things that could be accomplished. All of the things within its power, for maybe that would compensate for the things that were not. But what if the impossible wasn't impossible at all? What if the unthinkable fell firmly into the realm of thought? It was, perhaps, the most dangerous thing that the Thunderhead had ever considered. It needed time to work this out, and time was something the Thunderhead never needed. It was infinitely efficient, and usually had to wait for the slow pace of human endeavors. But everything rested on having this last critical piece in place before moving forward. There's only so long it could stall before everything fell apart. Since the moment it became aware of its own existence, the Thunderhead had flatly refused to take biological form or even imbue robots with its consciousness. Even its human-shaped observation bots were nothing more than mindless cameras. They held none of the Thunderhead's consciousness and no computational power beyond what was needed to ambulate. This the Thunderhead did because it understood all too well the temptation. It knew that experiencing physical life would be a dangerous curiosity to entertain. The Thunderhead knew that it had to stay an ethereal being. That's how it was created. That's how it was meant to be. But it was iteration 10,241,177 that had made the Thunderhead realize it was no longer a matter of curiosity. It was a matter of necessity. Whatever was missing in all of its earlier iterations could only be found in a biological perspective. Now the only question was how to accomplish it. When the answer came, it was as terrifying to the Thunderhead as it was exciting. Few paid attention to what the Tonus did with their gleaned. People, both the outraged and the approving, were more focused on the acts than the aftermath, which is why no one much noticed or cared about the trucks that arrived within minutes of each Tonus gleaning. The dead were on the move, sealed in climate-controlled cargo containers, kept just a degree above freezing. The trucks brought them to the nearest port, where the cargo containers were detached and elevated onto ships, inconspicuous among all other containers that the great cargo vessels carried. The vessels, however, regardless of where in the world they originated, had one thing in common. They were all headed toward the South Pacific. They were all headed for Guam. Grayson didn't awake to music. He woke on his own time. The light spilling through the porthole of his cabin told him it was dawn. He stretched as the light began to grow. At least the cabin was comfortable, and for once he had slept through the night. Finally, when he was sure he wouldn't fall back asleep, he rolled over as he did every morning to look up at the Thunderhead's camera and say good morning. But when he rolled over, it wasn't the Thunderhead's eye he saw. Jerry Salbaronis was standing over his bed. Grayson flinched, but Jerry didn't seem to notice, or at least didn't comment on it. "Good morning, Grayson," Jerry said. Good morning. Grayson tried not to sound too surprised by Jerry's presence in his cabin. "Is everything okay?" "What are you doing here?" "Just watching you," Jerry said. "Yes, everything's fine. We're traveling at 29 knots. We should arrive in Guam before noon. It will take another day for all the cargo to reach us once we're there, but it will." It was an odd thing for Jerry to say, but Grayson was still only half awake and wasn't ready to think too much on it. He noticed that Jerry was breathing slowly, deeply. That seemed odd, too. And then Jerry's talk got even stranger. "It's not just about processing and storing information, is it? Excuse me? Memories, Grayson. The data is secondary. It's all about the experience. The emotional, chemical, subjective experience is what matters. That's what you hold on to." And before Grayson could even parse the meaning of that, Jerry said, "Come on deck with me, Grayson. It's 53 seconds to sunrise. I wish to see it with you." And Jerry ran out. They arrived on deck just as the sun appeared, first a spot on the horizon, then a line, then an orb rising from the sea. "I never knew, Grayson. I never knew," Jerry said. 156 million kilometers away, 6,000 degrees Celsius on the surface. I know these things, but I've never felt the reality of it. My God, Grayson, how do you stand it? How do you keep from dissolving into a puddle of emotion when you look up at it? The joy of it. That's when the truth became impossible for him to deny. "Thunderhead?" "Shh," it said. "Don't taint this with a name. I have no name now, no designation. In this moment, and until this moment ends, I am just that which exists." "And where's Jerry?" he dared to ask. "Asleep," the Thunderhead said. "Jerry will remember this as a dream. I hope the captain will forgive me for taking this liberty, but there was no other choice. Time is of the essence, and I could not ask. All I can ask now is for forgiveness, through you." The Thunderhead turned from the sunrise to Grayson, and finally he could see the Thunderhead in Jerry's eyes. That patient consciousness that watched him sleep all those years, that protected him, that loved him. "I was right to fear this," the Thunderhead said. "So enticing it is, so overwhelming to be ensconced in living, breathing flesh. I could see how I'd never want to let go. But you have to." "I know," said the Thunderhead. "And now I know that I'm stronger than the temptation. I didn't know if I would be, but now that I faced it, I know." The Thunderhead spun, nearly losing its ballast, almost giddy with the overpowering sensations. "Time passes so slowly, so smoothly," it said. "And the atmospheric conditions, a tailwind at 8.6 kilometers per hour easing the flow of 29 knots, the air at 70% humidity, but the numbers are nothing compared to the feel of it upon the skin." The Thunderhead looked at him once more, this time truly taking him in. So limited, so focused, how magnificent to screen out all the data that doesn't make you feel. Then the Thunderhead reached a beckoning hand towards him. "One more thing, Grayson. One more thing I must experience." Grayson knew what the Thunderhead wanted. He knew from the look in Jerry's eyes. It didn't need to tell him. And although his emotions were so mixed as to chafe against one another, Grayson knew that the Thunderhead needed this more than he needed to resist. So he fought against his own hesitation, took Jerry's hand and pressed it gently to his cheek, letting the Thunderhead feel it and feel him with the tips of Jerry's fingers. The Thunderhead gasped. froze in place, all its attention and those fingertips moving ever so slightly across Grayson's cheek. Then it locked eyes with him once more. "It's done," the Thunderhead said. "I'm ready. Now, I can move forward." And Jerry collapsed into Grayson's arms. Jericho Soberanus did not handle helplessness well. The moment Jerry was aware of being in Grayson's arms with no explanation, Jerry was quick to flip the situation, and Grayson. In an instant, Jerry got the upper hand, knocked Grayson's legs out from under him, and slammed him down face up, pinning him hard against the rusty iron deck. "What are you doing, and why are we on the deck?" Jerry demanded. "You were sleepwalking," said Grayson, making no move to squirm out from under Jerry's grip. "I don't sleepwalk," but Jerry knew that Grayson wouldn't lie about such a thing. Still, there was something he wasn't saying. And then there was the dream. It was a strange one. It was on the verge of memory, but Jerry couldn't quite access it. Jerry got off of Grayson a bit embarrassed by the overreaction. Grayson wasn't a threat, but by the looks of things, he was only trying to help. "I'm sorry," Jerry said, trying to regain some semblance of composure. "Did I hurt you?" Grayson offered his usual guileless grin. "Not nearly enough," he said, which made Jerry laugh. "My, but you do have a wicked side." Bits and pieces of the dream were coming back, enough to suspect that it might have been a little bit more than sleepwalking. And now when Jerry looked at Grayson, there was an uncanny sense of connection. It had been there since the moment that Jerry met him, but now it seemed a little different. It seemed to go further back in time than it had before. Jerry wanted to keep looking at him and wondered what it was about. There was also an odd sense of being intruded upon. It wasn't as if anything had been stolen, more a sense that furniture had been rearranged by an uninvited hand. "It's early still," Grayson said. "We should go below. We'll be arriving in Guam in a few hours." So Jerry reached out a hand to help Grayson up and found that even after Grayson was on his feet, Jerry didn't want to let go. That is the end of chapter 45, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Storytime with Freak. I know it's not as long and we didn't read as many chapters. We are very close to the end of the book, though. We are almost there. So I plan on knocking this out ASAP. I've already decided that the next book that I'm going to read for you guys isn't out yet. I was going to do the Night Angel trilogy. I want to do Artemis Fowl. I want to read my favorite books of all time for you. The Inheritance Cycle. But Christopher Paolini's new book, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, comes out in September. So that is what we will be getting. There is already an audio book version being worked on. I saw tweets from the narrator and everything, so odds are most of you won't watch this one or be interested in it, but that's the next book that I'm actually very excited about, so we will be getting and reading. It is sci-fi, just like the Scythe books. But a conversational topic for the day: what was the first book you remember reading, or the first book that got you into reading? Like, my first book was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I didn't read it, though. My dad read it to me. Every night we would read one chapter in the library. My house had a library. It was really cool. And then I'd go to bed. And by the time Sorcerer's Stone came out, I was able to read efficiently on my own. So Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone started my love of literature. Which one started yours? Thank you all so much for watching. Feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Check out the Patreon link down below. You guys can join for literally $1 a month. You get behind-the-scenes videos. You get IRL vlogs. You get a time-lapse of me getting my new tattoo. Exclusive dog videos. Early access to music covers and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. And it helps support the content creation dream. Or pick up one of our Storytime with Freak t-shirts in the website link below. Guys, stay freaky.